Welcome back. My name is Matt, this is Hidden Light, and listen, we've not been doing regular videos for you, my YouTube people, recently. That's okay, we're working on a big project, and you'll hear about that eventually. But I do have an interesting project that I wanted to do and I wanted to share. I don't know the results yet, but today we're going to compare negative scanning software. There are three that I know of as sort of the primary negative inversion software that people have recommended or that I've seen on the internet or you see ads on Instagram or whatever. So we're gonna scan three different rolls of my film that I just picked randomly, 3 rolls. And then using those original raw files from the Sony, we're gonna compare Negative Lab Pro to Smart Convert and Film Lab app for desktop. The reason we're going down this rabbit hole is I've been using Negative Lab Pro, and we as a lab have been using Negative Lab Pro, and I find that sometimes some strange things happen to colors and saturation, and I want to see what some of the other tools will do when fed the exact same file. So step one, we're gonna go scan my negatives. I have 3 rolls. One is Portra 800. The other is Cinestill 800. So those are our 2 color rolls. And we kind of know what Cinestill and Portra are supposed to look like or what we want them to look like. So that'll be a fun comparison. And then we got a roll of black and white HP5. We've got some different crops going on. At least one of these I think was shot on the X-Pan. We're just gonna play around. And I wanna show you the results of feeding these programs these files and what they sort of want to do by default. So we'll go scan these real quick, then we'll come back and look at the computer and figure out how these programs work and what they would look like. Ready? Follow along, let's go. Okay, so we have our film scanned. I figure we'll start with black and white first, and we'll start in Negative Lab Pro. I like a lot of things about Negative Lab Pro. I like that it lives inside of Lightroom, which means I have all of Lightroom's functionality to use. But on the other hand, I also hate that it lives in Lightroom because I have to use all of Lightroom's functionality. And I think that a smaller tool would use less bandwidth and could go faster, but regardless, Negative Lab Pro and Lightroom to start. So I'll show you kind of the way that I play this game. I'm gonna hop in here, we'll do a white balance correction, and I'm just gonna crop way into the image here. This is just for conversions. And I apply that across the whole roll, white balance and crop. And I'm going to do the same thing to the color negative. This is, both color negatives are on the X-Pan, so we're just going to do these both real quick. Okay, good. So I have my images cropped down to just the image, and I have my white balance corrected to the best of Lightroom's ability. Now we're going to feed these to Negative Lab Pro. And we'll just do them, whoops, using the basic settings from Negative Lab Pro. I'm not asking it to do anything fancy. I'm not using any pre-built presets. I'm just gonna tell it to do the thing. Here's an annoying thing about Negative Lab Pro. You may have noticed these thumbnails sort of darkening and updating while I was talking. If you don't wait for that to happen, your conversions look like absolute shit. So you have to wait for it to do the previews, and we'll see this again in a second. So black and white default, border buffer doesn't matter because I'm not actually using it. We'll convert it, and it'll take a period of time. Boop. Okay, so 38 seconds for the conversions, and then a couple seconds for the previews to update. I'm not gonna touch these. I'm just gonna leave Negative Lab Pro in its default settings, and we're gonna move on. So that was, whatever, 50 seconds. I'm gonna do all of the colors all at once. So if once I hit the keyword shortcut for Negative Lab Pro, Watch the thumbnails. See how they darken and update sort of slowly over the course of 15 seconds or however long? If you don't wait, there's a problem. But we waited. So I'm going to put these into basic, which is kind of my preference to at least start. And then I have to wait for the thumbnails to update, and we hit convert. Okay, good. Conversion's finished. Took 37 seconds. Waiting for the thumbnails. Boom, done. Again, I'm leaving it in its standard whatever, so that was 47 seconds for 40 files. No big deal. So that's Negative Lab Pro, quick and easy. I'm just gonna go ahead and export these right as they are without having a FAFO as full-size JPEGs. Conversion test. Negative Lab Pro. Create, open. And then Lightroom will export 79 files. Speed matters to me. And that's why I'm going to continually talk about how fast things do things. Since I know I'm going to get asked. Yes, I'm an Apple person. So like, also the Mac I'm using is a laptop. It's a 16-inch MacBook Pro M1 Max with 64 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of internal SSD, which I am working off of. I've learned to work off the SSD on this machine and not off of any external drives because chaos ensues. So once Lightroom finishes its export, we will dump out of Lightroom and do the exact same system and the same files from the same raw scans in Smart Convert, also with a JPEG export. Okay, so that was whatever, 79 files in 55 seconds to do the export, which is pretty good actually. And I'll close Lightroom. And we will dump straight into S for Smart Convert. The reason we like Smart Convert is that it will convert on the fly from a hot folder. So if you tether your computer to your camera as you're scanning, it will run the conversions while you go, which in our case actually saves us a huge amount of time because it's automatically doing a conversion as you photograph each frame, which means that instead of spending 2 hours scanning film and then 4 hours doing imports and conversions, those 4 hours of imports and conversions just happen as you go, or 2 hours, or 1 hour, or 30 seconds, like whatever it is, it just happens while you go. So what I'm gonna do is treat this program like I'm running it tethered, and I'm gonna feed it a hot folder. So I think it's in the advanced settings, and I'm gonna change my hot folder to this conversion test, and the ARWs are just the raws out of the Sony. We're not going to, well, we don't actually have to do it this way, but we're doing it anyway. Import it into Smart Convert, create it, good, send it. So it's going to just do these on its own, so we'll start a timer. Interestingly, it doesn't appear to be doing them in any specific order. It's also not auto-cropping by default, which I think is interesting. One of the cool features about this program is that you turn on auto-crop and it will get rid of that rebate for you, or it will try to get rid of that rebate for you. There's a lot to like about it. It's kind of telling me that it's doing each file as it sees each file, but in no order at all. It's jumping all over the place. $75, $76, $77, $79. Okay, so that was an import and convert in 2 minutes and 17 seconds, which is, I don't know, like, I think pretty good. So this program is very different from what I am used to. And there's a thing that I want to see that I don't see in this program, which is a way to look at all of the images all at once. It might exist, and I'm just too stupid to see it. Let's see if I apply auto crop and then recalculate this. Not great and not great. So the auto crop is wrong, and there's no way for you to force a crop aspect ratio. For instance, if you were going to shoot an entire roll of images that were 2x3, i.e. full frame 35mm, it would be really smart for the program to be like, oh, this is 35. I should just limit the crop to the size of a 35mm frame. To my knowledge, that doesn't exist. There you go. It did recalculate and did a good job. And then in order for you to do the things, you basically just have to run through all the photos. Let's try an auto crop on Hasselblad. And then you edit the crop and you see that it's just omitting a whole bunch of stuff. So there's a lot I want to like about this program. However, that is really blue and it should not be this blue, and it's also upside down. So if I flip this right side up, this should be far warmer. On either Cinestill or Portra, this should be like way warmer. You can click and drag inside the image for white balance purposes, which I think is cool. You know, I was expecting something more a little bit like that. This is just a neutral gray floor. So that's, you know what I mean? So there's things that I like about this program. Let's look here. But there's also things like, why can't I go look at all of them? Where's the rest of the pictures? How do I see everything? There's no there's no way to do it. There must be a way to do it, and I must just be too dumb to see this. There has to be a way for it to do the thing. So auto crop, let's see. Pretty close. Actually quite good. It's still including a little extra border, but that's fine. And then if you recalculate it, add a little density, I don't know. It's just hard to use, this program. But the results, like when it does a good job, are pretty good. Like let's try this, and then recalculate. No? Not having it? Edit the crop, get rid of the border, try it again. Hey, that's what we wanted. Flip it around. So, you know, the results are good. And if you're willing to, frame by frame, go through your scans, edit up the crops, the tools that they give you for contrast, density, saturation, colors, etc. are really good, and they are mapped to your keyboard. And there's a list on their website of which does which, so you can just go through and as you go, and I'm sure you get quite fast at it. It is very specifically designed to mirror the way that a Fuji Frontier works. So that's where their layout comes from. That's where the way that they do all of this comes from. So let me just apply an auto crop to these and keep going. I could have sworn there was a way to do this without having to use this window. I could have sworn. Okay, so I've finished doing my conversions and flipping and enabling auto crop, which apparently wasn't on by default. And now I'm ready to do an export. Come over here and tell it to process all. And we're gonna do a new folder. This is called Smart Convert. And we're gonna open that, and we're gonna do just the JPEGs. Ready, go. It says 4 to 10 seconds per image. It's not particularly resource intensive. If I pull up the machine's activity monitor, we can ask it to see what's going on. Not a whole lot in the way of CPU. It's using some RAM, but it's really not trying that hard. You know, there's plenty left here. And it's kind of just leaving it on the table. So My inclination is to say that Smart Convert is one of the slower programs if you're not going to snap a photo, edit, 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 or like load a whole folder and then you're willing to look through every image one by one. One of the things I love about Negative Lab Pro is I can run it in batches. I can feed Negative Lab Pro very consistently 100 pictures at a time. Ask me how I know. I would love to be able to feed any of these programs 1,000 photos at a time. And so far, the only one that I've been able to do that with is the one that we haven't touched yet, which is Film Lab app for desktop. They have a mobile version too. So let's pull up Film Lab app while this thing is doing its thing because it's not really being that aggressive with my resources. So let's see, Film A, B, C, D, E, Film Lab app. Select a folder to begin. Tell me what to do. We'll see if this thing freaks out because their two programs are going to be working from the same files to start. Okay, so Film Lab app imports these almost instantly. Let me move this so that I can see what it's doing while I'm talking to you guys. So, one of the things I love about Film Lab app is I can do batch things. So, one of the first things that I would consider is to rotate a file, and then I'd probably do a crop. Kind of, you know, just a little to the inside, give myself a little bit of wiggle room. If I then go back out to the main folder, I can apply that setting. But you have to copy the setting first. Copy, crop and rotate, paste, edits. And it will crop and rotate all of them, which prepares them for the next step. So then if I just right click this bad boy and say process as black and white, 1 Mississippi, 1 second to do the entire roll. 1. Which is insane. And it did like at least a half decent job. So if we come in here and come look at these, like they look like black and white film. It does screw the pooch a little bit on the underexposed stuff, but I can come in here and just, you know, ask it for more, whatever. In this case, we're just going to leave the default settings so you can see what's going on. You know, like, yeah, it's screwing up a few, for sure. But it's given us like a half decent starting place. I did notice when I was doing this last week in my first version of this experiment was that Film Lab app tends to leave your black and whites a little under and a little soft. I mean flat. So they're not. It's not giving it quite as much oomph as Smart Convert does, except for the cases where it does, and then it's totally insane. Like this shot looks great, but some of the other ones it's kind of struggling with. Which is okay, it doesn't really bother me. Just flat. But let's go back and do the color. I'm just gonna do basically the same thing. I'm gonna come in on one of them and crop it. These are X-Pan, so yes, they're supposed to look this crazy. Hit apply, and then I'm gonna rotate it. Then I'm gonna come back out. Copy the crop and rotate and apply it through both rolls. Boop, 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 boop. I think that might have been 2.5 seconds for 40 frames. And then we're just gonna, with those same ones as they are, just process them as color negatives. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi. Okay, so 9 seconds, give or take. I know my counting is very whatever, but I'm still running the timer on the export for the other program. Let's come and look and see how it did. So this film stock is Portra 800, which is not an option. Portra 400 is pretty close. Oh wait, no, I saw it. Ultramax 800? Portra 800. Okay, okay. It's a little blue. Definitely a little blue. That's kind of close. A little flat. That's close. A little flat. I mean, you know, portrait can be like this, right? Oh man, just crop this guy out. That's pretty sick. Yeah. It's doing okay. I mean, by and large, oh, that's great. Did a great job with the skin tones there. By and large, it's an okay place to start. It doesn't like it when you underexpose it. This is underexposed by at least a full stop, and it hates it. And again, we should all be overexposing our color negative. Always, by a minimum of 1 stop. Always. These look exactly the way that I would expect them to look from Portra. I wouldn't hate them being a little more, you know, like just chuck a little bit extra yellow and magenta in there, but nobody asked me. Let's see if I tell it it's 800. Yeah, real similar. Okay, this is obviously Cinestill. So let's tell the machine that it's Cinestill. No Cinestill option? I mean, okay. That's fine. Oh no, there it is. I'm just an idiot. Reading is hard. Whoa, look at the blue. Okay, so I usually and frequently purposefully overexpose my Cinestill so that I don't have to do this blue. If I were to tell this thing that it's back to Portra, look how much warmer it looks. Both options are good. I actually prefer the Portra over the blue, although the blue of Cinestill has its place, and this is very much the way this film tends to skew. So, especially in the evening. So, you know, like I can dig it. But overall, quite good. Portra, let's tell it it's Cinestill and see the terrible things it does. Yeah, see, it hates that. Portra's okay. It's doing some things, but that looks correct. That looks the way that it's supposed to look. I screwed the pooch on these crops, but that's fine. Oh yeah, look at this. This is way better. If we come in on this, this is the right amount of contrast, probably the correctest colors that you're gonna get out of Cinestill. That looks pretty good. Don't mind my complete inability to focus a camera. If it says Hasselblad on it, I'm incapable of focusing it. I don't know where this is, but it's just my life. Smart Convert is still exporting. It's been almost 9 minutes. Let's do this. Export. Okay, so here we are ready to export. I've got them all selected, and we'll just ask it for JPEGs. sRGB, guys? Really? Come on. Why? Choose desktop, conversion test, phone call I'm not gonna take. What's this one called? Film Lab app. Film Lab app. Create. Export 79 images. Ready, go. Just over a second a piece. That's pretty good. Some of them will probably go a little faster, some of them will go a little slower, but it's going way faster than Smart Convert. Way faster. Which is what we want. So we'll give this thing a minute, and then when it's done exporting, we'll pull up all the results and look at them all. Okay, so Film Lab App's export was 2 minutes and 26 seconds. No big deal, much faster than Smart Convert. I have all of the exports open in Lightroom in a side-by-side. So we can look at them all and see what it is that we're getting ourselves into. So I'm just gonna open them in N for survey, and we'll be able to look at them all. So here is, the order will stay the same. It's going to be Film Lab App up top, and then Negative Lab Pro in the schmiddle, and then Smart Convert on the bottom. This is Cinestill 800T, and just like, see what you see. The blue, yeah, sure, I believe that. Film Lab App, sure. Negative Lab Pro, punchy, warmer, which honestly I prefer. and then flat, and like ready and awaiting for you to like do things to it in Smart Convert with a totally wonky auto crop. Interesting. Very interesting. It knows that it's Cinestill and it really wants it to be Cinestill. But Native Lab Pro does a killer job of correcting for Cinestill's horseshit. If you don't want it to be blue, it doesn't have to be blue. I'd say the middle one is like pretty good, true to how it felt. The top one is a reasonable place to start. Those rocks are like this color. Whoa, Native Lab Pro. Okay, this is what I was talking about. This is just on the edge of too far in terms of saturation and contrast. Native Lab Pro has done a thing here that looks great, but is it too far? If you were going to get one of these scans back, which would you prefer? Because, woof. I like the top two. Smart Convert's giving me a weird green on this film stock that I don't prefer. Native Lab Pro's got some lightness in the shadows to it. This is probably, and this was like sunset, so this is probably what it felt like to actually stand there, but they're both good. Big difference. This is a crazy difference. Actually, you know what? This is not what I expected to see. I expected, for a lot of reasons, to prefer the Film Lab app, and it is giving me like a reasonable, flat, good-looking result, and it's mostly leaving the film alone. I feel like the Film Lab app's conversions are closer to what the film is supposed to look like. As if there is such a thing, because scans do things. But Native Lab Pro is giving me like a better result out of the box, on average. Film Lab app, a little bit darker. Native Lab Pro, a little bit brighter, which seems to be kind of a thing. Not quite across the board, but sort of. Dude, I don't know. Okay, let's look at some black and whites. I really wish that this would just do the thing. So 1, 2, 3. Native Lab Pro's got me. Film Lab app's doing okay. Smart Convert's struggling a little. These are close. Let's see what happens when I underexpose one. Ooh, Film Lab hates it. It hates it so much. Native Lab Pro, not a problem. Smart Convert, pushing those blacks a little further than I necessarily want. But man, Film Lab app hates it when you underexpose your black and whites. Look at that. Ooh, ouch. Like, yeah, sure, there's detail, and I can pull that into Lightroom and punch up the contrast, or whatever program you use at home. Wow, it hates being underexposed, or what it views as underexposed. I love the punch on this. It's good. I didn't rotate this one, but you get the idea. You get the gist. That's interesting. Yeah, Film Lab app giving it to me kind of gentle, kind of flat, kind of mellow. And then Native Lab Pro is really punching up the jams. Interesting. And then Smart Convert goes the other direction and just nukes it. It's very artistic. All right, so you get black and whites, you're getting the vibes. Let's go back to some more color, which exists. Don't mind my ass backwards inside out. Okay, this is another example of Native Lab Pro compensating for the film stock and giving me a beautiful, warm image. Look at the color of the whiskey. I'm gonna flip this one back around so that they're all the same. Warm, beautiful, rich tones on the countertop and the whiskey. Anemic green, gross blue. Whiskey is the perfect thing to photograph because when you're done photographing it, you get to drink it. But also, it has a very specific color in sunlight, and you can look at it and be like, oh yeah, duh, that's how that's supposed to look. Film Lab app shit in the bed on my underexposed film again, whereas Native Lab Pro just gives it to me, and it gives it to me good. Ugh. Whoa, holy color variation, Batman. This is in the shade. at like sunset. This is Native Lab Pro doing something that I think is a little too far. This is too much contrast. I don't want all of it, but I don't necessarily want none of it. Give it to me in between. This, I think Native Lab Pro crushes it. That's what you want. We'll crop this guy out over here, just omit him, do a content aware fill, and you just have this woman with her beer all alone in the cold. Gorgeous shot, killer colors. Here's my woman with her beer in the cold. Native Lab Pro crushed it. That is the color of my dog. That's what he looks like. Good skin tones in Native Lab Pro. It's not pushing it too far. I mean, maybe a little far, but not crazy. It's a very different look. This, I actually prefer the top one. Give me a little bit more mellow. It's a little more cinematic. And this is much closer to the color of these bricks in normal daylight. But when you get into sunset with some smoke in the air, you're much more likely to get this color. This is like as correct as you're ever gonna get it. I mean, that's a very clear winner. This is where it starts to shit the bed a little bit. It's going too blue and too punchy. Whereas this, either of these, top or bottom, cinematic sort of vibes, a little more flat, work better. I would say, having looked at all of these, I can make a conclusion. Native Lab Pro does a better job. Period. Okay, so maybe it's not that Native Lab Pro does a better job, full stop. But given that it's in... We just blew our light bulb. Okay, no? Okay. Yes. Okay, don't mind our new lighting setup. This will do for now. What I've learned from this test. Native Lab Pro does a really good job. The fact that you have to use it with Lightroom, which means an import, which takes time, and then an export, which also takes time, is kind of annoying. I do really love some of the things that FilmLab app does. I think it's capable of producing the kind of results that you're looking for as a standalone program, a one-time $100 and whatever dollars, call it $200. Although I think it does go on sale every year around Black Friday. That's a really good standalone program, and it does a good job with the pictures. The workflow is pretty good. You can do batch things. I did feed this program over 1,000 files, and it did just fine. It just did them. No big deal. So I love that, and I love a lot about FilmLab app. But I think we're probably going to continue to use Native Lab Pro and Lightroom. The only reason I would switch out of that would be the ability to have the machine do the things as you're going. As you're shooting, it imports, it runs out of a hot folder, and just boom, 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 boom. I'm pretty sure FilmLab app will do that. I know Smart Convert will do it. Whatever works for your workflow is awesome. But for me, I think we're probably going to continue using Native Lab Pro until we find a reason, a compelling reason, to change that. So thank you for joining us for today's very strange experiment. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, stick those in the comments down below. And, videos are a little less frequent now, but when they come out, join us. And we'll see you in the next one.